all that in there for a reason, though, because I'd rather just teach it all one way so you don't have to learn one way. The 10.3 is simplifying radicals. So all the ones we've done so far, we've done like the square root of 81. We know the answer is 9. But what happens when you get like the square root of 50? Square root of 50. We know the square root of 49 is 7, so it's really close to 7. But if you put it in the calculator, you get 7 point something, something, something. So you come over here and you can do 50, the square root 7.071. But that's a decimal that keeps going on and on and on forever. It never stops. So we want to have exact answers so you can just simplify these. Okay, so there's kind of a silly story that I have that goes along with this, but it helps you remember it. There's two different ways to do this, actually. Let me show you the first way first, because this way is a little bit harder, but you may have taught this way, so you may know how to do it. It's looking for perfect squares, basically. So if I had the square root of 50, I could break that down to two numbers. I could break it down to the square root of 25 and the square root of 2. Square root of 25. I can't write today. Square root of 25 and the square root of 2. Well, 25 times 2 is 50, so that's fine if I break that apart like that. So now the square root of 25 is 5, and then the square root of 2 is 2. So this would be 5 times the square root of 2 would give me the same decimal as the square root of 50. It's the exact answer. So what this way does is it pulls out the perfect squares. I know 25 is a perfect square, so I can pull it out. The problem is, what's the first thing that you think of that you divide square root of 50 by? Did you think 25 or did you think 5 and 10? A lot of people think 5 and 10. So here's another way of doing it. And again, like I said, it's kind of a silly story, but you'll never forget how to do it now. So if this were a jail, if the square root, the radical were a jail, and I started to break this down, let's say I divided it by 10 and 5. So 10 times 5 is 50, and then break this down to what, 2 and 5? So this is called the factor tree, and y'all know how to do that. You can just divide it by a number and break it down slow. So this means 2 times 5 is 50. So if this were a jail, you have your different groups in jail. So you have twos, your group of twos, your group of fives. So this 5 gets the great idea that he's going to break out of jail. So he goes to the other 5 and says, hey, I need your help to break out of jail. So they go and break out of jail tonight. And when they're going, he just didn't tell his friend that he needed him to distract the sniper, so he gets taken out. And this 5 makes it out alive, and the 2 doesn't have any friends to break out of jail with. There's 2 points of that story. One is that you circle the 2 5s, and only one comes out, and only one makes it out alive. I have to tell the story because at some point in time, I've taught this so many times that I'm going to say that 2 doesn't have any friends, and you're going to wonder what I'm talking about. The 2 doesn't have any friends to break out of jail. So there's 2 things that this way the story works. Since we're doing the square root, we're looking at pairs. So the square root is what number 2 times itself gets out. 9 times 9. So you're looking for pairs. So the pairs, the square root helps you find, or jailbreak story helps you find pairs. You have to have a pair to break out of jail, and then only one makes it out alive. Okay. So this is an easy way to do this. Again, you may have been taught this way, but I'll probably do it this way because you don't have to think as much. So square root of 72. What number do you think of? First number you think of to divide 72? 8 and 9. And that's one of the problems. If you try to do this one this way, it makes this one hard. So now you have what? 2 and 4, 2 and 2, and 9 is 3 and 3. So now if you look at this, here's everybody that's in jail. 3 2s and 2 3s. So the 3s are going to break out, and the 2s are going to break out. So the 2s break out and the 3s break out, and this 2 right here does not have any friends. He stays in jail. So this becomes 6 square roots of 2. So again, the 2s break out of jail, the 3s break out, so I have 6 on the outside, and the 2 doesn't have any friends. He stays in. Yes.
Pretty much the pairs go out.
So the pairs go out. That's why yes. But the thing about the jail, you don't write the pairs twice. Just write them once. So there's a pair of 2s that come out and a pair of 3s that come out. Yes, that's what we're looking for here is the pairs. Now the square root of 98. So here's one of my ones. Don't try to think of a big number that divides 98. What's something that divides 98? Just think of the smallest. I mean, just do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Just do a small number. So if I divide it by 2, I get 49. Well, then 49 is 7 and 7. So I have a pair of 7s that come out. and the 2 doesn't have any friends, stays in. The other reason this is nice is because what if I have a cube root and I wanted to simplify it? I know the cube root of 27 is 3 and the cube root of 64 is 4, so it's somewhere between 3 and 4. If I want to break this one out, what do I know multiplies to be 54? 6 and 9 is usually the first thing you think of. So you have 6 is what, 2 and 3. 9 is 3 and 3. All right, so now this is cube root jail, so it's like higher security. So it's going to take 3 people to break out of jail. They break out, 2 get taken out by the sniper, 1 makes it out alive, and the 2 doesn't have anybody break out of jail with. So this is 3 times the cube root of 2. I just write the 3 over here so it doesn't get mixed up with that other 3. But 3 cube roots of 2 is what that is. Or you could even do 4 through to 48. Oh, I need to do letters. That's the whole point of doing this. The 4 through to 48. So here when I break down 48, you probably think 6 and 8. So I have 3 and 2, 4, 2, 2, and 2. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. So how many do you think it's going to take to break out of jail this time? There's 4. It's the 4th root, so even a higher security is going to take 4 to get out. 3 of them are going to get taken out by snipers. 1 makes it out alive. Then 4th root, 2 times the 4th root of 3. And again, since we were talking about calculators earlier, you can always check this. Like say the square root of 98, one right here. So if I have 98 square root, I get this decimal, 9.8999, right? If I get this right here, I can check it. I can do the square root of 2 times 7, and I get that same decimal. So you can check these. All right, so what about letters? We didn't do anything with letters earlier. So what if I have the square root of 18x cubed y to the 4th? We'll just start with x cubed. 18x cubed. So the number here, if I break it down, if I divide it by 2, I get 9. Divided by 9, I get 3. So here my 3 comes out, and my 2 stays in. All right, but what about my x's? My x's, well, if I can write them all out, x cubed is the same thing as x times x times x, right? So again, a pair of x's break out, and this x doesn't have any friends, so it stays in. So you have 3x times square root of 2x. All right, but the problem with that is I don't want to have to do that for all those. What if I have something big like, just do numbers here, something like this? I don't want to have to sit here and go x, 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 all the way till I get to 15. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for pairs, right? So to find my x's here, I can just do 15. Since I'm looking for pairs, I could just divide it by 2, and that tells me how many pairs are there. So how many pairs are inside of 15? So it'll be 7, right? 7. 7 times 2 is 14, and that leaves me with a remainder of 1. So what that means is 7 pairs break out of jail, and 1 doesn't have a friend to break out with. All right, so my y's, if I'm looking for pairs, how many pairs are there in 14? 7, and there is no remainder. So all 7 of them break out, and there's nobody left in jail. No y's left in jail. So here on this one, I have what, 75. So what can I divide 75 by? Somebody say 5? 5 and 15. So 5 and 3. So there's my pair of 5s. They break out of jail. And my 3 doesn't have any friends, so it stays in. My X's, I do what? 17 divided by 2. So how many pairs are inside of 17? 8 with 1 left over, right? So 8 of them break out and 1 stays in. What about my Y's? How many pairs are inside of 19? 9 and 1 stays in. So 9 break out and 1 stays in. Whoops. All right, so what if I have the cube root of letters? What am I going to divide it by this time? What am I looking for? I'm looking for groups of 3 to break out of jail. So if I divide it by 3, that tells me there are 3 groups or 5 groups that break out. So there's 5 groups of X's that break out, and there's none left over. What about my Y's? I have 17 divided by 3. What would that be? What? 5 with the remainder of 2. So there's 5 groups that break out, and there's 2 that are left in. They didn't have enough friends to break out. I got to have at least 3 to break out of cube root jail. And again, if you don't like doing it this way, it doesn't take that long. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So what do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups that break out. I'm looking for groups of 3 because it's cube root. All right, so here you have the 4th root. So the 4th root of 192, if you divide that by 2, you get 81. 81 you can divide by 9. So you have 4 3s that break out. And you have a 2 that doesn't have any friends that stay in. So they break out. It takes 4 of them to break out. So again, since it takes 4 of them to break out, my X's, I'm going to do 13 divided by 4. So how many groups of 4 do I have inside of 13? 3 with the remainder of 1. So 3 groups break out and 1 stays in. What about my Y's? I have 19 divided by 4. 4 with the remainder of 3. So 4 groups break out and 3 get left in jail. And my Z's, how many groups have been inside of 5 out of 1 with the remainder of 1? So 1 group breaks out and 1 stays in. I believe this section also starts the multiplication.